Coaches, what's going on? It's Coach Ian Tatum here, back with the Tatum Clinic Series, and today we're back with the Head Coaches Academy. Today I'm here with Coach Micah Hughes, who is the head coach at Mount Bethel. Is it Christian school or is it just high school or
Mount Bethel Christian Academy.
Mount Bethel Christian Academy in Marietta, Georgia. Coach has been gracious to come on and talk a little bit about his journey, and then starting this program and his experiences as a head coach, and there with about Coach. How you doing? And appreciate you coming on.
Hey, I'm doing well. I appreciate you and what you do for the coaching community. I think it's a really awesome thing. So I'm just glad I could come on here and share a little bit of wisdom that I've experienced.
Yes, sir. Of course. So let's jump right into it. So, who is Micah Hughes? Where'd you get your start? Just a little bit of a bio. Leading up to where we are now.
Yeah, absolutely. So my brother was his name's David Reynolds. He was a head strength and conditioning coach at a very prominent school in Chattanooga, Tennessee. It was called the Baylor School. And so as soon as I got out of high school, I knew I wanted to get into the coaching world. I say that he kind of pushed me into it a little bit, honestly. And then once I got into it, I was like, man, this is what I want to do. But I took that right out of high school. And I called it a GA role. I mean, I was at it was a very prominent private school, but I was just doing kind of the grunt work and loving it. Coached middle school. I was coaching. I was doing 4 practices a day. I do 2 a days with the middle school, 2 a days with the high school, and I was eating it up and just loving everything about it. So that was really when I knew is like, hey, I want to be a coach. I spent 5 years there, was fortunate enough to, after year one, and especially in private schools, you get kind of thrust into doing a lot of different things and a lot of different roles. I coached basketball there. I coached baseball there. And that helped me too, to cultivate my coaching style, was coaching other sports. And so from there, I wanted to get out on my own. I'd been underneath kind of that coaching tree and that group, Phil Massey and a bunch of other guys who really helped me kind of get my career going. I actually took a defensive coordinator job at a really small rural school called in Sell Creek, Tennessee. A lot of people are like, man, you're crazy. You're leaving this kind of Taj Mahal and you're going into this place that doesn't have any of the facilities or anything like that. But it was starting a program, and I was a defensive coordinator there. We went 0-20. We jumped right into varsity play, didn't do anything with JV, just right into varsity. And it really taught me how to be a football coach. I mean, it really did, because I had kids that never played football before. I had to teach them how to put a helmet on. I had to teach them how to put shoulder pads on, pants. We could not assume anything. Nowadays at the high school level, you get them and you assume they understand this technique, or you assume this. We couldn't assume anything. So I had to start literally from ground zero with these kids and their technique and fundamentals. It made me such a better coach. We went going 0-20, but it was probably the best experience that I had. And I built some really deep relationships with those players that I still keep in touch with and talk to every week. Sometimes multiple times a week. I have one particular player who's actually into coaching, and we talk multiple times a week. From there, I left, went to a school in North Georgia, very prominent public school in North Georgia, and we were able to win some region championships, and we had some undefeated seasons, and a lot of success there. My degree is in history. So I got back into private school at a small school in North Tennessee. It was Clarksville, Tennessee, almost on the Kentucky line, and spent 3 years there as a defensive coordinator. Last year, got to be the assistant head coach, and then had 2 small children. Moved back to my hometown of Chattanooga, Tennessee, and took a job there as a defense coordinator and assistant head coach at the school called Boyd Buchanan. Spent 2 years there under a guy named Jeremy Boskin, who, if it weren't for Coach Boskin, I would not be prepared to be a head coach. He was one of the hardest people I've ever worked for in my life. There was multiple days where I was like, man, I can't do this anymore. I can't work with this guy. I can't work for this guy. But he drove me to answer questions that I didn't think I needed to answer, and do things from a meticulous, all of it was unbelievable. And then my last year there, I got to work as the assistant head coach under a guy by the name of Gary Rankin, the winningest head coach in the state of Tennessee. He is actually like the 9th winningest coach in the history of high school football. He's got 489 wins. He'll get 500. He's 17 state championships. Boyd hadn't been to the state championship since 2001. He'd been there 2 years, took him in year 2 to the state championship. So I was able to learn practice, preparation. I think honestly, he's a phenomenal human being. And I think that's the main key to his success. The other portion of it is how he practices and how he prepares for teams. And I know that sounds like everybody does that, but the way he does it is
Yeah.
very unique. And so being under and being mentored by a lot of those men have really led me into the ability I feel like to be a head coach at this point in time in my career.
Yeah. So because I have the assistant head coach title as well, and I assume a lot of the extra anything I take off my head coach's plate, I try to do that.
Yeah.
And I see it almost like an internship. Like it is a head coaching internship. Like now it's not necessarily your name on it. It's not necessarily where the backlash comes on you, but you get as close to the seat as you can. Is that kind of where you wanted to be when you wanted, when did you want to be a head coach? And then you tried to put, you asked to be in that type of a role where it was, hey, I'd like to be an assistant head coach because one day I want to be the head man. So what did that look like for you? Kind of like, hey, I want these responsibilities. I want to be in on these conversations that you're having so I can prepare myself. When did you want to be a head coach?
That happened. That happened for me pretty quickly on.
Yeah.
Probably honestly, when I went to Sell Creek, because the guy who was there, a guy by the name of Ron Cox, phenomenal human being, just a great person. But he allowed me to do a lot. He had been a middle school coach prior to taking over that job, and he leaned on me a lot. Just with even as young as I was in my career, the experiences I had at Baylor, just being under some phenomenal coaches and a phenomenal program like that. He leaned on me a lot. And from there, I realized, this is something that I would want to do. And so I think a lot of people think that, and they, it's something that um, they realize early on. But then again, I've said this many times this year, as this is my first head coaching job this year. There's a lot more to it than meets the eye, obviously, and a lot less coaching. And that was the biggest thing for me, is I didn't get to coach as much. But earlier on, I knew, hey, this is something I wanted to do. And really, honestly, that's kind of where I've geared myself, is to, I'm gonna try to be the best coach I can be. But I also want to be a manager of people, a manager of players. And I worked really hard on to kind of cultivate that skill, where I felt like I was always a problem solver. It was like, hey, the sideline replay is not working. Micah can figure it out. Headsets aren't working. Micah can figure it out. Why? I kind of just took that upon myself to do those type of things. And so I feel like now, I've experienced it. I've kind of gone through the fire of that. So now not a lot phases you, because you've been in that situation. Hey, we're 10 minutes from kickoff. The
Mhm.
sideline replay is not working. Or I've been in a situation where we've kicked off. I'm in the booth, and I'm, calling plays or doing whatever, and I'm still trying to fix the sideline replay system, or I'm still trying to fix issues, that present themselves that, maybe somebody else's job, but we've got to get it fixed now. So I learned that early on, and those were just roles that I took on. As stressful as they are, I just felt like that was a skill I wanted to develop. And again, like I said, just being thrown into the fire, I felt like I developed those skills to where now, especially in game stuff and things that surround games, it's like, okay, hey, deep breath. We're going to work it out. We're going to get this fixed, and kind of manage the people around you as well to take on that same kind of calmness and that demeanor.
Yeah. Try to walk something back real quick. So you were living, like, you're from Chattanooga. So
Uh-huh.
what kind of drove you to be in the Georgia area with Mount Bethel? Like, was it just an opportunity? Somebody reach out to you? What kind of took you out that way?
It was always, I spent a couple years in the North Georgia area, and just being able to
Mhm.
see the level of football. I mean, just
Yeah.
the level of football in itself, was just, it was night and day. Now Tennessee does some phenomenal things. Don't get me wrong, and they've got some wonderful teams. And you could match up a lot of those private schools, especially the big private schools. You can match those up against Georgia teams any day of the week. I mean, seriously, I know
Yeah.
when I was at Baylor, we played Innsworth in Nashville, Tennessee, and they had Jalen Ramsey, or no, that was Brentwood Academy. I'm sorry, Brentwood Academy had Jalen Ramsey and Derek Barnett. both on the same team. I think they ended up having 9 Division I signees out of that one group. And so, I mean, you're looking at those type teams. I know the Macaulay School is the rival school to Baylor. They beat St. X in Cincinnati this year. They beat Woodward Academy down here in Georgia. I mean, they play a national type schedule, and they're beating people up left and right. So it's not to diminish the teams in Tennessee. They're great. Just the overall importance of football in Georgia to me is different. And so my wife is originally from a place called Duluth, Georgia, which is about 45 minutes from where we live. And so, I'd always had my eye down this way. And so had almost taken a couple assistant jobs as well down here prior to the head coaching position that I took. But just the importance on football and how they do things was so important to me, and just what I wanted and kind of what was pulling towards me, and so that's kind of why we kind of made that jump and leap down here.
Nice. So let's talk about some of the biggest challenges. And I know you're starting your program, and this is your first time. But what are some of the biggest challenges that maybe you weren't prepared for? Even if you were, hey, you're still like, hey, this kind of sucks. You embrace it. You make it happen, but you're like, yeah, this is tough. What are some of those challenges that maybe you weren't expecting, or maybe you were?
Yeah, so I'm in, I don't say a unique situation, but we're starting a program here. They had never had a high school football program, and so they had 2 years of middle school prior to me coming here. I say that they had really 1 year of true tackle football. The year before they had played a padded flag, which I know USA Football does, and it's a very interesting concept. I think a lot of people were like, we were really confused. They didn't know to tackle, they didn't know to pull the flag, kind of like, what's going on? So they did a year of that, and then they had 1 year of middle school and just got mercy ruled. I mean, and just beat up pretty bad. So when I came in, I wanted to try to get immediate success within our middle school football program, and we did. We were able to go 5-1, which was great for us, and a great success. What we were really, I think that the biggest challenge is, coming in is just really, I think when you're an assistant head coach and when you're, in those positions, the delegation from the head coach is, hey, you got to get this done. We got to get this. There's a kind of a consistent list of things, hey, we've got to get these things taken care of. But when you're sitting in that seat, and people say this, but it's true, it's one of the loneliest places in the world, because you're like, all of this stuff has to go through me, and I make the final decision. And you know what? I'm a very, I like to put feelers out to say, hey, what do you guys think? I've always been that way. I think more eyes and more ears and brains are so much better than one. And I've always kind of leaned on a group, more so than just me sitting there by myself going, hey, we're doing this, we're, all of those type things. So those were the biggest challenge, I think, and I touched on it earlier, was just the ability, I didn't get to coach a lot of football this year. I have very little, and so, coming in, putting staffs together. You have to put, and it's structurally, it's weird. I'm trying to change a little bit. We have a 4th, 5th, and 6th grade team, and they're all on one team. So it's 4th, 5th, and 6th graders all on one team. We have a 7th, 8th grade team, and then we have a 9th through 12th grade team. So when I got here, there was no schedules. There was not a staff outside of maybe 1 or 2 people. So trying to structure that and put that together was very challenging. And then when you start to put a schedule together, you got to work through all kinds of different things that are going on, especially in a place that doesn't have football. Like I scheduled a game, or I scheduled a scrimmage in the summertime, and they're like, oh, hey, we've got a back to school night that night. And I'm like, and I respect that, and I'm gonna bring the kids there, but we only have so many days to get so many, so many scrimmages and games in. So, it's completely changing the culture of the school and the mindset of what they've done in the past. And so those were things that, I was kind of like this, it was tough. And then, I mean, just every day it kind of was like, you're like, man, there's something else every single day.
Mm-hmm.
But I think to me, that was the biggest thing, was just the inability to really coach a lot of football, and do those type of things was And again, people tell you that. They say, hey, when you become a head coach, you've got to do all this administrative stuff. All this other stuff kind of falls by the wayside. And you're like, okay, yeah. But I mean, it really did. And so, I mean, and I'm bumping around to different practices. I had a middle school head coaching change kind of early on. I brought in a guy, and just some personal stuff happened, and I had to switch and transition quickly. So I had to coach a lot. I mean, I was calling the defense for the middle school. And also doing a lot with the high school defensively and offensively and different things like that. So it's one of those things. I don't know if I could put a pin on a certain thing. It's just something every day, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's just all these different things pop up every single day. Kids get in trouble in class, something happens in class, uniforms, or something happens with the uniforms, and maybe you order them, they don't get here on time. I mean, it's just, you're like, what is going on? I know our coaching apparel was late getting in, and I've got to outfit two middle school and a high school staff. So you're trying to juggle and navigate all these things, on a daily basis, where, again, like I said, I don't know if I could put a pin on one particular thing. I know one big issue we had was, actually two, I can tell you two off the top of my head, was, and this is a great situation for us, but we're a small school, so we allow kids who don't go to Mount Bethel to play for us in the middle school. And that's kind of the way Georgia's structured anyways, because if you can live in a district and they don't have so much of a middle school team, you play more for a rec type feeder team. So we kind of went that route. You didn't even have to live in our district. If you wanted to play for us, you pay the registration fee and you could play for our middle school teams. But what happens is Mount Bethel, we're out at 3:15, whereas other schools around the area, public schools, are out at 4:30. So, and then two, you're coming into a school where there's not, the kids, football is not their primary sport, because if it was, they wouldn't have been going to school there anyway. So, I was going to move practice back to 5 to 6 or 5 to 7 or 6 to 8. Well, a lot of parents were like, we can't do that. Mount Bethel parents, because they were like, our kids play soccer, our kids play baseball at night, or they, there's other things that they've done in the past. And from a number standpoint, I'm like, we got to have these kids. So I had to come through and on the fly come up with a structure that worked for both parties. And we ended up practicing. I wouldn't have a middle school coaches show up till 5. And the other teams would practice basically with us through individual. As far as what I mean by us is the upper school, through individual from a 4 to 5, 4 to 5 period. So it'd be 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock. All the Mount Bethel kids who were there would practice, with us, and we would do a structured practice with them, or an individual. I say we just do indie period. 5 to 6, when all the kids got there, we would do a team period, and then 6 to 7. When the other kids, the public school kids who, couldn't make it, they would get their individual period then. Not ideal, but it was, it was a compromise and a structural thing we were able to put in place to kind of meet both parties. And then really the biggest thing that I found this year is our off-season, program, and structuring it, because we're a small school. We have about 160 kids, and that's boys and girls in our upper school. We're on 2 different campuses. So we have 2 different campuses. We have around 700 or so and that's pre-K through 12, but we're on two different campuses. And so that poses logistical issues in itself. But structuring an off season, because so many of our kids are in other sports. So it was just kind of like, I'm like, how do I get the middle school kids up here? How do I get really a true off season program in place? And we don't have a true weight training class yet in place during the day. So, navigating those waters and different things like that, those were 2, again, just off the top of my head, but, something every day where you have to be a problem solver, and that's your biggest role. I mean, head coach aside, you've got to be able to solve problems and fix issues on the fly and quickly too.
Yeah, that was kind of like I led right straight into my next question. You kind of answered it. It was like some of those daily headaches or fires you got to put out, because some of my head coaching buddies are always like, man, I'm a fireman. Like, people say, what's your profession? I'm a fireman. I put out fires every day. So yeah, like you're talking about logistical situations with 2 campuses, the 3 teams, that are all connected, having coaches for every one of them, having schedules for every one of them, kids in the building. You have kids on different campuses. Again, all these different things. So those daily headaches, things that guys you don't realize. And I know your situation is different, but if you're at a big school, you might have a varsity JV freshman team. So you might have something similar, but at the very least, you have a varsity and JV. So you can struggle to kind of keep it all, together, every day. But those are the headaches and the fires you got to put out. You have to make sure you handle those. One thing I was kind of thinking about, how many coaches over your 3 programs are you in charge of? And then outside of that, how many kids are in the program total?
Yeah, no. So I mean, that was one thing when I came in, and it was honestly by the grace of God that that I was able to get the coaches that I did. When I came in, I told them, I was like, guys, I've got to have at least 10 coaches on our upper school team, if not more. And so I was able to hit that number on our upper school team, and then actually this year I was able to add a couple more. Kind of like graduate assistant type, some guys who are trying to kind of break into the coaching world. And that's a big thing for me, is the development piece. I want to help and develop as many coaches as I can, from that. So I'm open. I mean, if I get an email from a guy and I jump on it immediately. If anybody emails me and says, "Hey, coach, I'm looking to just help," I mean, like, okay, let's talk. I'll help you anyway. If you'll help us. And so 10 to 12. This year we'll be right at 12 coaches on our upper school, which is great. Every position's coached. I've got a couple, kind of hangover guys who are able to kind of go and help in other places and do some different things there. And then 5 and 5 at actually we had 6 with our 4th, 5th, and 6th grade team last year, and then 5 with our 7th, 8th grade team. So and to me, that's the most important thing. Anywhere I'm going to be, the most important. And I don't say this to take anything away from our high school kids or program. I mean, they're as important to me as anything and anybody. But
of course,
the focus for us is in our middle school as far as the consistent build, because I think if we can really hone in on that, take care of that. I mean, another thing, just not trying to rewind. Another thing we face is being on 2 campuses. A lot of times, the lower school, the 8th graders have spent very little time on our upper school campus.
Yeah.
So for them leaving in 8th grade, it's as easy for them to go to another school, whether that be a public school or another private school, as it is to come to, our upper school. So that was when I first got there. We have a beautiful turf field, jumbotron. The administration did a phenomenal job in the preparation of getting this football program ready. And so I was like, we're practicing every day at our upper school. I think in the past they had practiced at the lower school. And I'm like, we're bringing everybody up here. We're going to be on the same field. We're going to be doing the same stuff. I want these kids to know the importance of practicing here, playing here. And so we immediately dove into that really head first. But yeah, I mean, that was my biggest, I want as many guys as I can get. And my biggest, and this is my philosophy, I say this all the time, it's the truth, is we have our program philosophy is people, process, and product. And my biggest thing is I want to surround our program with good people. And honestly, when I sit down with a coach who wants to help, X's and O's are secondary. I mean, that's the truth. And my thing is we can get you to where you need to be on that level. If you're a good person, I can incorporate you into our program, no problem. And then from there, from bringing in these really good people, we have a structured and organized process in place. And if you do that, we always say the product will take care of itself. And so that was what we did this year, is just spend a ton of time really diving deep with relationships with these kids, and really going about it that way. So that was big. But yeah, so to really fully answer your question, 12 at the upper school, 5 to 6 on both of those other ones. And then again, like I said, anybody that ever just says, "Hey, coach, I'm willing to help," I'm going to grab them immediately and find their strength and put them right into place in those situations. So, I like that.
Yeah. And for everybody watching, coaches, when he's talking about, his middle school is huge, because I'm on your Twitter, coach, and I'm kind of just being nosy, but I see you're speaking at the Glacier tomorrow. I love Glacier, so you're speaking at Glacier tomorrow, and you're doing youth topics. So yeah, definitely, definitely practicing what you preach. that the middle school, youth and lower, levels, like you have, a big passion for that. So that's huge.
Yeah, and I thought about it. It's funny. I'd seen guys do it in the past, but I thought about putting a help wanted thing on one of my slides, being like, "Hey, if you guys are interested, and you're in the Atlanta area and you want to help." But no, that's big for me, and that's one of the reasons I really wanted to do that at the Glacier. And I'll tell you, they've done a phenomenal job. I mean, I've been impressed with them. I've been getting emails all day and all week about how they're so organized and so structured. It's a phenomenal clinic, and I couldn't speak any higher on them and what they do. But the big reason, I wanted to do that, was to connect with these youth coaches. And a lot of those guys, they can. I lean on them a lot of times to say, "Hey, you've done this longer than I have. What helps y'all? What is good for? Give me some advice." I need that because I've not spent a ton of time at that youth level. So, when I got here, really, I moved down here in June. I started to try to just inundate myself with these youth programs, these 7-on-7 programs, and I'll just go and watch them practice. And what I've done from that is I'd go and spend time watching them practice. And I'm like, man, that guy out there, he's a phenomenal coach. And I'd go up and be like, hey, man, where are you coaching right now? He's like, Coach, I'm nowhere. I'm like, well, you need to come coach with us.
Yeah.
And because I know people, the 7-on-7 world and a lot of those type things can be, pick your poison on it, I guess. But I would just go and spend time with those guys and just see what they do. And you say, hey, man, that's that guy, well, I don't know if I'd have him on my staff the way he's talking to kids and doing things. But then you see other guys like, man, these guys are. And I found some phenomenal coaches really this year doing that and making some connections there too. So I'm excited about that really more than speaking at the clinic, just connecting with some of those youth coaches and getting to know them and, and see what they do and how they do things more than anything, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'm huge on the networking. I'm huge on the meeting folks. Like that's why I do these videos, Coach, because we've made a connection. We've met each other, maybe not in person, but at least through internet. We've have met each other, and I think that's huge, a huge piece that a lot of guys they don't take advantage of. And I tell a lot of people, I'm like, hey, I'm doing this clinic. I'm doing all my videos like that. It's to help others, but it's also to help me. Like I don't know everything. I want to know everything. I never will, but that's what I strive for. So 100%, I love, the networking piece as well. So I do the same thing at Glaciers. Like I go and sit in on topics, but I'm sitting at the lobby and I'm walking around the vendors and I'm trying to, shake hands and meet people. I think that's, there's a lot of value in that as well.
Well, and I'll tell you, I'm tomorrow. I'm speaking on one. I'm doing one of those panel sessions. Like the rapid fire questions on developing assistants. And I don't know if it's on my top on the list. If it's not, it should be. And I still do this. I've done this all off season. I just will go and I will email coaches and go, hey, can I just come sit down with you? I just want to come and sit down and talk to you. And it's really at this point in time, our X's and O's and our kind of structure. We tweak it and we're constantly developing. But I want to go and talk more about program development, philosophy, how they have built and sustained success and those type things. And then through that, I have coaches who will text me all the time and go, hey, man, I'm applying for this job. Do you know so-and-so? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely I do. And I'll pick the phone. I can call him right now or, whatever it is, just because I've gone and sat down and people and I've been just, you're incredibly surprised at how open so many of these coaches are to do that. And to, I don't think I've ever had a coach tell me, hey, no, I'm not interested in talking to you. I really don't. And even some guys who you think, man, that guy might be, I don't know that guy. He's real rough and gruff, but then you go and talk to him. You're like, man, that's one of the best people I've talked to, So that's my biggest suggestion in the world would be, at those clinics and at those things, go and talk to people. Even if you don't think that person would talk to you or they're way up here or whatever it might be, go and talk to them, go and spend some time because, one, you get all those nuggets and all that information. And two, it's a connection that you made that you never know down the road where that comes into play. So.
Yeah, because I want to respect your time. I got two last two things I kind of want to throw
Yeah.
at you and get your opinion. One, what are some things you think that coaches that are aspiring head coach that want to be head coaches? What are some things that they can do today, this year, and moving forward before they make that jump? What are some things immediately that they should start doing to prepare themselves? Because you're never in it till you're in it. But what are some things they
Oh
can
yeah.
do to prepare themselves?
I mean, I would honestly say, I would talk to my head coach, that the head coach that I'm currently with, and let them know my aspirations. And that's one thing that I did early on. I said, look, I want to be a head coach, and I'm not shy to that.
Yeah,
I'm not, you know, I might not be the greatest X's and O's guy in the world, but I wanted to be a head coach. Like, I want to be a head coach. It's what I want to do, and I would tell my head coaches that.
mhm.
And for them, I think that shed light into, okay, this guy, he's a little different. You know what I mean? He's got some goals and aspirations. Whereas, any staff you have, I'm a big person who I want to hire guys who position coaches who want to be coordinators who
Yeah,
want to be head coaches.
yeah,
That's guys, because they're hungry and they're going to work their butts off for you. Now, every staff you're on, you're going to have those guys who are happy being position coaches, and
yeah,
they're good at what they do. I'm not knocking those guys. But I think if you are open and honest and voice, I want to be a head coach. This is what I want to do. Um, then the head coaches and those guys are going to look at you, differently, and and then from there, it's, look, this is what I want to do. How can you help me? Um, it's adding the responsibilities onto that. It's, and then even if, um, even if they're not willing, as willing, I guess, maybe add some of those responsibilities, um, you know, take those on yourself. I mean, and I know that's more work for people, but it is what it is. And if it's what you want to do and that's where you want to be, you're going to have to do that. I mean, and I can't tell you again how many days I'm sweating my tail off up in a press box in June, making sure our sideline replay works, or setting the sideline up, making sure the sideline is where it needs to be. And I became the head coach of that.
yeah,
Not only was I the head coach of my position or my side of the ball, but I was going to be the head coach of all of these other things. And then if we had other guys who wanted to help do that, then we can divvy responsibilities, but I'm still going to make sure that job gets done.
yeah,
And so I think those are little ways, where it's going to be just, it's work. I mean, and I don't think there's any way around it. I mean, maybe you luck into falling into a head coaching job, and it just is, it's luck sometimes. And I'm not saying that negatively. I know, but my journey's been just constant hard work, and I do a lot of graphics, and I do a lot of different things like that, where I kind of, you make yourself, um, where they have to have you.
mhm,
If Coach Hughes is not there, we can't get this done.
yeah,
And how are we going to get this done? So you put you kind of do it that way, and that'd be my biggest advice. But I mean, first and foremost, I'm going to my head coach and I'm saying, look, hey, can we have a meeting? I just want to sit down with you, and just be honest and upfront. Hey, I want to be a head coach. What is the path to get me there? Maybe I'm the running backs coach, the receiver coach, or whatever that may be at this point in time. So let's sit down, and can you help me put out a blueprint or a plan together? Now, it's not always going to work that way,
yeah,
but at least you have something you can kind of hang your hat on to say, hey, and again, if you got a, and I'm not, don't take this the wrong way either, but if you got a head coach who's not willing to help you, maybe you look somewhere else. Because I want to be with a guy who can mentor me and guide me in the direction that I want to go and meet the goals and aspirations. And I'll be honest, I mean, I've taken some jobs in order to advance my career. And I've interviewed for some jobs before, and they said, well, hey, you've been at 5 or 6 different schools. Why? And I said, because I've got a goal and an aspiration in mind, and it's nothing against that previous school or that previous coach, but if I can't get to where I need to be, I'm gonna go somewhere where I can get those tools that I need. And I think when you mark it out that way, people have respect for it, and they can understand it, and they
yeah,
want to help you. So that would be my advice, if it's worth anything.
yeah. All right, last one, Coach. I don't want to say it's an easy one, but maybe a little more, you might have to think about it for a second. If you could go back to your younger self and give him some advice about coaching, being a head coach, your journey, X's and O's, development with relationships, whatever it may be, what is some advice that you would give yourself if you were in year 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever of coaching?
Honestly, that's pretty easy for me. It'd be two things. One would be I would keep every practice script, take as many notes as humanly possible, because no matter where you are, what you're doing, you're going to pull positives and negatives from every single program you're in. And want to be a head coach, you mark it down and you say, okay, hey, this is something, I can't tell you how many things that, and I did it as of late. I did it as of probably the last 5 years. But if I could go back to when I first started coaching and really, just keep all of the material and all the stuff. And what I mean by that is just the practice scripts, the practice plans, the things, because there's so many times I say, oh, we used to do that when I was at this school or when I was at that school. But I'm like, I don't remember it. I do remember, but I don't remember exactly. So it would be just hang on to all those things. I can remember when I took this job at Mount Bethel, I shared an office with Coach Rankin at Boyd, and he, again, 17 state championships. An unbelievable coach. He had folders and 3-ring binders, with the laminate sheets with his scripts. And he would handwrite everything. Just meticulous notes. And I remember they played in the state championship this year at 11 o'clock on a Thursday, that's a weird time for a state, 11, playing a game at 11 o'clock is different. Yeah. But I remember I was looking through his script and I was like, this is where they played at 11 when he was at Alcoa. This is where they played at this time. He had played in so many state championships. He had it marked out to where it didn't matter. He knew the structure of what he was doing, how he was going to do it, and there wasn't any question to it. And then with that, again, you can take away, you can write notes that says, hey, I wouldn't do this. This is something I wouldn't do. I've done that. I've been in a lot of successful programs where I said, okay, this is not me. This is not what I would do. May work here, but it's not going to work for me. So you can pull positives and negatives out of everything. So that would be the biggest thing for me with that, and then too, earlier on, I would have been honest with my head coaches as to what my goals and aspirations are. I think you cover those up sometimes because you're young and you think, man, maybe they won't take that serious if I tell them this. But don't hide it. Don't shy away from it. If you want to be a head coach, tell them. If you want to be a coordinator, tell them. Let them know, because from that, they can help you if that's, again, adding a little bit on each year, or, the one of the coordinators leaves. Okay. What's my clear shot to get that job? Tell me how I can. So being honest and being upfront, instead of just thinking that, they would never think of me like that or whatever. Because I don't think that's I think if you're honest, you're upfront, they're going to look at you in a different light.
Yeah. Well, Coach, this has been absolutely awesome. It's a pleasure to meet you. It's a pleasure to sit down and talk to you. And like I said, I had your Twitter up here, and I see your football stadium, and it looks very beautiful. So y'all are blessed down there in Georgia, man. But again, I appreciate listening to your journey, listening to a little bit about your process, and learning some do's and don'ts, some struggles, some challenges, what it is to be a head coach. And I wish you nothing but success moving forward as you build up Mount Bethel.
No, hey, I appreciate it. And again, like I said, I appreciate what you do. I just think it's a great thing from a resource standpoint. And I don't say this again. I know I say it, but don't say it in a bad way. But there's so many resources out there nowadays where I think a lot of times it's hard for young coaches to really pinpoint on certain things, and bringing these type things to light, with what you're doing and how you do these things, I think is tremendous for the coaching world. I just wish you success in what you're doing. And I think it's a great thing you're doing. And I appreciate you allowing me to come on here. And again, somebody can pull something from this, and that was worth everything.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. Hey, again, be good. Have a good time at Glacier tomorrow. Meeting all these guys and presenting. Good luck with the presentation. Hope it goes well. And I'll be keeping up with Mount Bethel. Like I keep I don't have a Rolodex because I'm not that old, but I keep a contact list of all the guys that have helped me out or have done a video or I have friends and buddies with, and I save them all on Max Preps. And Matt Bethel is definitely going in there for sure.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Hey, you have a good night.
You too, buddy.